All right, we're back in Glamour. We're going to start getting into a new section, which is called Glamour on the mental plane, and which is illusion when it's on the mental plane, right? So spent some time yesterday, when we got off here pondering on those rules of the road. How can you explain to, these rules to someone so that they, that we can grasp it? And as I read rule number 2 again, and it doesn't look like you can grasp it until you've already been through that part where you've already been vile and crass and self-interested, which is if we didn't press on, there could be some remorse there in a way, right? Like if we looked at it really deeply, it would actually be cause for a real level of regret almost, but it's not, because of the way that the road goes forward in today regardless, and there's no shakiness on the road. But if there were ever a reason for such a thing, that would be it, in my opinion. It's such a powerful thing. It's really unbelievable. So we're going to get into today. We're getting into glamour on the mental plane, and we've kind of defined these things at this point, and now we're gonna start from the top. It seems like on the mental plane and go and work our way down, which is often the case. DK does that in white magic, treatise on white magic as well. And there's always a system. There's always a method, and it's always appropriate. So here we go. In this section of our discussion, we shall give less time to the consideration of illusion than we shall to that of glamour or Maya. Illusion is not met squarely, faced, and overcome until man has A, shifted the focus of his consciousness onto the mental plane, B, worked definitely at the task of intelligent service, and C, made his soul alignment consciously and easily, and firmly established his technique of contact. And then D, also taken the first initiation. It's interesting. The word illusion is frequently lightly used to signify lack of knowledge, unsettled opinions, glamour, misunderstanding, psychic bewilderment, the dominance of the lower psychic powers, and many other forms of the world illusion. But the time has come when the word must be used with a developed discriminating sense, and when the disciple must know clearly and comprehend the nature of that phenomenal miasma in which humanity moves. Well, please, let's see that, right? For the purpose of clarity, in order to distinguish more definitely and effectively between the forms of illusions in which the soul moves and from which it must liberate itself, it will be necessary for us to separate the great illusion in its various aspects into the component parts in time and space. And this I attempted partially to do when I defined for you the words Maya, glamour, illusion, and dweller on the threshold. I want you to keep very clearly in your mind these distinctions and to study with care the tabulations earlier given you. Illusion, for our purposes, can be understood to signify the reaction of the undisciplined mind to the newly contacted world of ideas. This contact opens up from the moment a man has aligned himself and brought the lower nature into touch with the higher. Ideas come to us from the plane of the intuition. The soul illumines the plane of mind and the plane of the intuition so that they stand revealed to each other and their mutual relationship becomes apparent. The mind of the man, which is slowly becoming the center of his consciousness and the major reality in his existence, becomes aware of this new and undiscovered world of ideas, and he seizes upon some idea or group of ideas and endeavors to make them his own. At first, with the majority of people, and especially with the average mystical type, the appreciation of ideas is vague and nebulous, and frequently is arrived at from a secondhand angle. I think we understand that. There's no reason to get into that. The illumination coming through the medium of the feebly established soul contact seems to the unaccustomed neophyte to be of a supreme wonder and a vital moment. Right, it does. The ideas contacted appeared to him a great marvel, superbly unusual, and vitally needed by humanity. Right. But the mind is still self-centered, the contact feeble, and the alignment uncertain. The ideas are therefore only dimly sensed, but the uniqueness of the experience and the realized content of the mind of the disciple leads him deep into the realm of illusion. Now, what leads us back into the realm of illusion here? I'm going to read it again. The ideas, the mind is self-centered, the contact feeble, and the alignment uncertain. The ideas are therefore only dimly sensed, but the uniqueness of the experience and the realized content of the mind of the disciple leads him into the realm of illusion. So this is, I guess, in regard to this level of illumination that the mind is seeing by the soul. The idea or ideas which he has contacted are, if he could realize, only a fragment of a far greater whole. And we, and this is important because we have to, this is where we have others helping us, hopefully at this point, telling us this stuff. And we're being attracted to material like this, others who are on this path. And we're finding out that this is just a fragment. That which he brings to their interpretation is inadequate, certainly. The idea which has emerged in his consciousness through the partial awakening of his intuition will be distorted in its descent to his brain consciousness in several ways. That which he brings to the materializing of the idea and to its transformation into a practical working scheme is as yet wholly unsuitable. The equipment does not suffice for accuracy. The ways in which this distortion and his stepping down of the idea take place might be outlined for you as follows. The passage of an idea from the plane of the intuition to the brain. 1, the idea is seen by the mind, held steady in the light of the soul. 2, it descends to the higher levels of the mental plane and there clothes itself with the substance of those levels. It remains still an abstraction from the angle of the lower mind. This point should be carefully noted by the would-be intuitive. 3, the soul throws its light upward and outward, and the idea, nebulous and faint, emerges into the consciousness of the man. It stands revealed, much as an object stands revealed when the bright beam of powerful searchlight is thrown upon it. The mind, endeavoring to remain in constant, steady, conscious contact with the soul, seeing into the higher world through the medium of the soul's wide open eye, registers the idea with increasing clarity. Four, the idea revealed becomes an ideal to the attentive mind and eventually something to be desired and materialized. The thought form making faculty of the mind then comes into play. The mind stuff, or chitta, right, becomes actuated by the energy of the idea, vitalized by the recognition of the soul, and the idea then takes its first real step towards embodiment. An ideal is only an embodied idea. These are the first steps towards materialization. Embodiment becomes possible, thus illusion is produced. So this abstraction and this process is creating the illusion. And a materialization of it is creating the illusion. 5, distortion now sets in. This is brought about by various causes. These might be enumerated as follows. The ray type of the ego colors the man's interpretation of the idea. It colors the emerging thought form. Symbolically speaking, the pure light is changed into colored light. The idea is then clothed with color, and thereby the first veil descends. 2, the point in evolution which a man has reached has also its effect, plus the quality of the integration exists between the 3 aspects of the personality and the alignment established between the soul, mind, brain. This being necessarily imperfect produces indefiniteness of outline and consequently of final form. Therefore, we have A, imperfect integration of the personality, indefiniteness of the proposed thought form. C, the raw material consequently attracted for the building of the thought form. D, a shifting focus of attention owing to this dimness of the seen ideal. And E, the rapport of the mind with the sensed idea is not stable. 3, the quality of the development of the mental body of the disciple produces the next veiling of the idea, as it is called, the veiling of the idea. The idea has become changed through the ray coloring of the soul, and now still a more distorting change is brought about by the ray type of the mental body itself, which may be and usually is different to that of the soul ray. So the mental body, the ray of the mental of the mind is usually different than the ray of the soul, and so it's now colored by that as well. So we have multiple ways that this is being distorted. These ideas are being distorted. These are the second steps towards materialization. The form of the embodiment is qualified, thus illusion is produced. Six, this illusion demonstrates in 7 ways, usually. Through the wrong perception of an idea, the disciple cannot distinguish between an idea and ideal, between an idea and a thought form, or between an intuitive and a mental concept. This is one of the ways of producing illusion most found commonly amongst aspirants. The mental atmosphere in which we all dwell is one of illusion. It is also an atmosphere or area of conscious contact wherein thought forms of all kinds are to be found. Some of them are placed there by the hierarchy for man's finding. Some of them are men's thought forms built around ideas. Some of them are very ancient ideals and have been discarded, but still persist as thought forms. Some of them are entirely new and therefore are not yet potent, but most attractive. All of them have been created by man at some stage or another of his individual and racial development. Many of them are the shells of long exploded concepts. Still others are embryonic. Some of them are static and stable. Many are in process of descent from intuitional levels. A few are still illumined by the clear light of the soul and are ready for embodiment. A large number of other thought forms are in process of disintegration. Boy, so we have a lot going on here, is what we're seeing, right? There's a lot happening. This isn't just one thought form at work all the time. This is the whole thing. You know, all the contents of the mind, I want to say, or of you know, I can't speak to how high all of this goes. I suppose we can't. You know, we're talking about the lower three worlds right now. We're talking about what's in our, you know, our brain consciousness essentially, and what we're able to discuss. So we're looking at this from, you know, what's in the mind. Some of these forms or embodied ideas are of a destructive nature owing to the type of matter of which they are formed. Others are constructive. All of them are colored by some ray energy. A large number of these forms are necessarily built through the activity of the world of personality. Others are in process of construction through the agency of the soul, as well as through the joint activity of both these manifestations. Right perception is therefore essential for each mind functioning correctly. Aspirants must learn to distinguish between an idea and an ideal, between that which is embodied, that which is in process of being embodied, and that which is awaiting disintegration. You know, these things are huge. This is great instruction here. I don't know how to put in words how I see the difference between an idea and an ideal, other than I would say right now that I see the idea as being something that, you know, very easily comes and goes, and an ideal being something that stays and has collective conscious or collective unconscious breach, where it is a part of, you know, an ideal is part of the collective, and an idea is, you know, just a fleeting kind of thing which comes and goes. An ideal will be longer lasting in my mind. But now we also need to learn between that which is embodied and that which is in process of being embodied, and that which is awaiting disintegration. Now these, you know, I believe we can see these rather clearly with a bit of concentration. You know, we can use the, you know, the awakening of humanity as an example there of, you know, something, you know, that is in transformation, in the process of being embodied, because there's a precipitation amongst so many where it's building in. And then, you know, that which is awaiting disintegration, and in that we can look at it astrologically speaking, where, you know, we're leaving Pisces and into Aquarius, and that's awaiting disintegration. Those concepts are awaiting disintegration. Now, I'm just talking from my own, this is what I'm thinking about. We know that, the brotherhood of humanity is looming and will be embodied. We know that harmlessness and right human relations will eventually be sharing, selflessness. We know that eventually these things will be embodied. And we know that in the opposite of those are awaiting disintegration. And then, all right, so we'll move on. Between that which is constructive and that which is destructive, between the old and the new forms and ideas, between the ray ideas and forms as they color the higher presentations. And we, as, aspirants, or, we need to study the rays and know which rays are coming into manifestation and which are going out of manifestation, and how, they're here and yet not here in certain aspects or certain forms all the time, and how they're affecting this world and the countries. So we obviously can't dig in on that. I don't have the ability, and we don't have the time, even if we could go off on that tangent, because it's treatise. The treatise on the seven rays these are volumes dedicated to that. So you might look at the Moria Federation web YouTube page, or makara.com, and check out some of those. And there's some great stuff about it on the Theosophical Society's website as well. Between the ideas and thought forms, and between those which are purposely created by the hierarchy and those which are created by humanity. Now, we must learn to distinguish. Wow, that is very interesting. This thought forms created by the hierarchy and which are created by humanity. So let's say, for instance, let's just say, I'm going to hypothesize for a second. Let's say that we've been brainwashed, and a lot of what we've seen is a big psyop. And these are thought forms. Well, if the hierarchy is coming in to disintegrate or destroy those thought forms and break them up, so we can learn what is true, and or get to a higher expression of this, how would they do it? How would the hierarchy, what would be the thought forms and ideas placed by the hierarchy into the mind? Would they create an entirely new psyop that would reverse the effects of the other? Or was the other created also, and now it's time for that one to be disintegrated and for this one to be moved in? So so this is intense. Would these things be placed in to really, so that things are not what they seem? When you see something happening that is apparently just so ridiculously obvious in the world, is that, where's that from? So that this is the kind of stuff we need, we need to think about these things, right? Is it purposely created? Or were they created by humanity? And, and humanity operating from what, which levels? And then recognize that, and then stay the heck away from them, right? Essentially. So be in the world, but not of it again. All right, now we need to understand between racial thought forms and group ideas. Now we know that we're not talking about race. We're not talking about colors of races. We're talking about the Aryan race as a whole. Group ideas. That's something that needs to be, I'm going to have to ponder that. I could list many more differentiations, but the above will suffice to show the need for right perceptions and to indicate the roots of the prevalence of the world illusion brought about by wrong perception. The cause is an untrained, unillumined mind. The cure is training in the technique of Raja Yoga, which is basically mental yoga of the mind. This result is the ability to hold the mind steady in the light, to perceive correctly, to achieve a right outlook, and to attain a right mental attitude. It was these right attitudes with which the Buddha was dealing when he outlined the Noble Eightfold Path. It involves the reaching of a right mental attitude. Yes, I said attitude, my brothers, not, he said, I'm sorry, and I read it wrong. It involves the reaching of a right mental altitude. Yes, I said altitude, my brothers, and not attitude. So that was one. And this is, we're still talking about how, the illusion demonstrates in 7 ways. And we just went through 1, which is the wrong perception of an idea, and 2, through wrong interpretation. The idea, a vital entity or a germ of living potency, is seen through the medium of a partial view, distorted through the inadequacy of the mental equipment, and frequently stepped down into futility. The mechanism for right understanding is lacking, and though the man may be giving his highest and his best, and though he may be able in some measure to hold his mind steady in the light, yet what is he offering to the idea? What he is offering to the idea is but a poor thing at the best. This leads to illusion through misinterpretation. And I suppose there's nobody to blame any of this on, right? There's not. We know that. We can only blame ourselves. However, when I don't even know if I should say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Don't. Everybody around us is freaking crazy. So this makes this really difficult, right? Now, is that illusion too? Yeah, we understand this. But it seems like this is perpetuated, right? How can we really hit the most efficient levels of this when we're so stagnant? It's you can't blame it on anybody else, and I'm not blaming it. I'm talking relatively speaking from an illusory standpoint there, but that's tough. This is a tough thing, is what I mean. And this leads to illusion through misinterpretation. The cause is an overestimation of one's mental powers. Well, when you get on the path, I think you understand very quickly that we are foolish, more than we believe that we have overestimate our mental powers. I think that's probably the case prior to, I don't know. But the sin par excellence of the mental plane is pride. And that colors all activities in the early stages. The cure is the development of a cautious spirit. I've seen this before, the mental type is pride. The sin par excellence is pride, and it's written in the Bible as pride. And then I think if you listen to Metallica, he says, I'm a wanderer, the vagabond, right? All that. But all I have is my pride, which is interesting. The third way is through wrong appropriation of ideas. Misappropriation of an idea is based upon the drama-making faculty and tendency of the personality to the self-assertion of the little self. These lead a man to appropriate an idea as his own, to credit himself with its formulation, and to give, therefore, undue importance to it because he regards it as his. He proceeds to build his life around his idea and to make his aims and his objectives of major importance, expecting others to recognize his proprietorship of the idea. He forgets that no one idea belongs to anyone, but coming as ideas do from the plane of the intuition, they are a universal gift and possession and the property of no one mind. And I'm, with all that, I'm hugely at fault for this as an inventor of various, a number of products that I thought would be beneficial to humanity, a medical device, a couple of other things in the gun industry, because I'm a veteran. So I'm very familiar with guns. So I made a couple safety products for rifles, and to make, if you're going to do it, to make it safer. And everybody's always worried about getting patents, and protecting your intellectual property. And we know, we live in this world and this is how it is, but we know that no idea belongs to any one person. And as soon as you think of it, it's already out there and somebody else is thinking of it too. And this is often seen to be the case many times, where that idea is being, is coming around about the same time as others are having that same or similar idea. And that's seen often in, inventions that come about, slightly differently. One idea, you have this idea of how to fix a problem, and then you have the interpretation, and a few people are going around and they're doing it, they're fixing the problem differently, but all the while, we think it's our own, they're thinking it's their own, and they're running through all these legal hoops, potentially lawsuits and everything else, to protect an idea that they believe is theirs. It's not theirs, because even in patenting your product, you just gave all the information to the government immediately anyway. So that's crazy. It's all crazy, is what I mean. We're not thinking properly. Thankfully, DK is putting us on track. The cause is overestimate overestimation of personality and undue impress of personality reaction upon the sensed idea and upon all who attempt to contact the same idea. The cure is a steady attempt to decentralize the life from the personality and to center it in the soul. One point I would like to make clear at this point, ideas very seldom come into the world consciousness and into the human mind direct from the intuitional levels. The stage of human development today does not yet permit this. They can come from the intuitional levels only when there is a very highly developed soul contact, a potent mind control, a trained intelligence, a purified emotional body, and a good glandular equipment as the result of the above requirements. Ponder on this. Most ideas, when of a very high order, are stepped down into the consciousness of a disciple by his master and are imparted to him through mental telepathy, and as a result of his sensitivity to the psychic gift waves, as the Tibetan teaching calls them. Ideas are also sensed in the interplay between disciples. Frequently, when disciples meet together and thus stimulate each other's minds and centralize each other's focused attention, they can unitedly make a contact with the world of ideas, which would otherwise be impossible, and bring through the newer concepts into being. And just another, that's a great reason to meet and fellowship with others and talk to others. Again, certain great ideas are to be found existing as currents of energy upon the mental plane and can there be contacted and forced into embodiment through the trained attention of disciples. These currents of mental energy, colored by a basic idea, are placed there by the hierarchy. When thus contacted and discovered, the neophyte is apt to regard his achievement in a personal way and attribute the idea to his own wisdom and power. You will note, therefore, that the great need for right understanding of that which is contacted, as well as for right interpretation. You will note, therefore, the great need for right understanding of that which is contacted, as well as for right interpretation. This is through wrong direction of ideas. This is due to the fact that as yet the disciple does not see the picture as it is. His horizon is limited, his vision myopic. A fraction or a fragment of some basic idea impinges upon his consciousness, and he interprets it as belonging to a range of activities with which it may have absolutely no relation at all. He therefore starts to work with the idea, distributing it in directions where it is entirely useless. And this phase is talked about quite often, and I want to say in White Magic and other books. He begins to clothe it in form from an utterly wrong angle, embodying it in such a way that its usefulness is negated. It becomes useless and it falls apart. Thus, from the very first moment of contact, a disciple has been suffering from illusion. And as long as this is persisted in, the general illusion is strengthened. This is one of the most ordinary forms of illusion, is one of the first ways in which the mental pride of the disciple can be broken. It is illusion through an initial misapplication leading to a wrong use or wrong direction of the idea. It can be broken because you're seeing how things fall apart. And then we can realize it through mistake and through error. For this trial and error, we're going to learn also very much so by error. Its cause is a small and non-inclusive mind. Its cure is the training of the mind to be inclusive, well-stocked and well-developed from the angle of modern intelligence. And as we think about that, well-stocked and inclusiveness, the world, the great illusion that most most of humanity is likely stuck in is the limitedness of what is brought to them and what they believe and what we believe or what we did believe or what we're willing to accept. I know that, in my own beingness, I feel very foolish and of my first 40 years, I want to say, or something, right? My first 37 to 40 years, however you want to look at that. Oh, the ignorance, man. Oh, the ignorance. And it didn't stop then. I'm not claiming that that's what, all of a sudden, that's when it stopped. That's not true. That would be a lie. All right, 5, through wrong integration of an idea. Every disciple has a life plan and some chosen field of service. If he has not such a field, he is not a disciple. Dang, that is rough. And so really, here's what I would say, and we're working towards this expression of it, right? And look at, we should look at our life pattern. We should see the trend of our life and the way that it, where it led to, and what, how you view things and what your skills are and what, what you're capable of doing. And in that will be the, hidden our plan, our chosen field of service that should be wrapped up in there. And that just should take a little bit of contemplation, and then we will inevitably work towards that, and it will unfold in that direction. I want to say very naturally. It may be the home or the school or a larger field, but it is a definite place wherein he expresses that which is in him. In his meditation life and through his contact with his fellow disciples, he touches some idea of importance, perhaps, to the world. Immediately, he seizes upon it and seeks to integrate it into his life purpose and life plan. It may have, for him, no definite use and is not an idea with which he should be working. And this is the working out of this whole process. Honestly, this is a process. This happens. DK is not speculating. This happens here. We go down these roads, we see these things, we jump off, we think this is our new thing, and we try to make it, this is our thing. That is not necessarily it at all. We're working towards it, and it may be included in the overall scheme, but don't go running off right away and thinking that you got it. That's not how this goes. The overactivity of his mind is probably responsible for his so seizing upon this idea. All ideas sensed and contacted need not necessarily be ideas with which every disciple should work. Because we do have these incredibly altruistic ideas or beautiful ideas that we know will eventually be embodied by humanity. We know these things. You can see the direction it's going, but in a sense, in a vague sense, but that doesn't mean just, you just run off shooting from the hip. Now, I can tell you that, I have a business, and then, we wanted to create a foundation for veterans. And we had these, I want to say it was like 2 summers ago, and I had this incredible, ideas, I guess, come like about how business should operate in conjunction with service. And the thought was to combine the business, have the business run for the benefit of the foundation and employ, those who can also benefit from the foundation. So veterans and law enforcement, and this is what what the plan is. But I can be honest, the idea is proper, and it's true after a couple of years of pondering on it. Now, is it for this time? Maybe not, probably not. And do we have the backing to do these things? No. Are we prepared fully? No. But is it something to come along later that would benefit the whole in the way that, it would function? Yes. Should we have run off and tried to do it at the time? Should I have run off and tried to do it and accomplish that? Probably not. I thought that was what I was supposed to do. It was way too big of a concept, although beautiful, and it's, and what it is and what it can do. It was not time. I did not have the capability or the resources or any such thing to do it. And so I should have, I should have recognized that and backed off of that and found what I can do. And so it's just personal things there. But these things do come, and it did get me off track. And I was off track because I was trying to make something happen that was not going to happen then. So there you go. That's how we can get off track very easily. This the disciple does not always realize. We don't realize that we shouldn't go after all these things. He therefore seizes upon an idea and attempts to integrate it into his plans and tries to work with energies for which he is not temperamentally suited. Right, exactly. We can go very deep into this. He imposes an energy current upon his mental body with which he cannot cope, and disaster follows. It wasn't disaster that followed, it was just a recognition of, in this particular case, of that it wasn't going to work. You could call it a disaster, I guess. No, I wouldn't call it, not in this case. Many good disciples demonstrate this overactive mind and arrive at no good constructive objectives or life activity. They seize upon every idea that comes their way and use no discrimination of any kind. This is illusion through acquisitiveness. I'm fully guilty about this, and it's so interesting because you get an idea in the beginning, these beautiful ideas, or what we think should be an ideal, and we do seize upon it, because it's just the first of them coming through. Not to realize that that there's going to be many more, or you don't know what's to come. You think that you got something special and that you're supposed to work on it, not realizing this is going to unfold. And you're trying to make something personal that's not necessarily personal. Nobody's saying you have to do this. We have to get our minds right before we move out. So I guess that's kind of funny in a sense, right? We have to be intelligent. We have to focus on contact with the soul and work and be reasonable. If I get to put my own coloring on that, its cause is selfish grasping for the little self. It so is, man. It so is. Even if this is unrealized and the disciple is glamored by the idea of his own selfish interest, it's so the case. It is the case. And then the cure is a humble spirit, and we're working through this. This is a working through process, and we're coming out the other side humble. All right. 6 is through wrong embodiment of ideas. This refers primarily to the difficulties encountered by those developed souls who do not touch the world of the intuition, who do intuit the great spiritual ideas, and whose responsibility it is to embody them in some form automatically and spontaneously through a trained and rhythmic activity of the soul and mind, working always in the closest collaboration. The idea is contacted, but is wrongly clothed in mental matter and therefore wrongly started on its way to materialization. It finds itself, for instance, integrated into a group thought form of a coloring, keynote, and substance, which is entirely unsuited to its right expression. This happens far more often than you might think. It concerns the higher interpretations of the Hindu aphorism, better one's own dharma than the dharma of another. This is illusion, and this is illusion through wrong discrimination where substance is concerned. Its cause is a lack of esoteric training and creative activity. The cure is the application of the 5th ray methods, which are the methods of the mental plane. This form of error seldom applies to the average aspirant or concerns an illusion, which is the testing applied to many initiates of fairly high degree. The ordinary disciple, such as you and others in this group, seldom touch a pure idea and hence seldom need to embody it. Yeah, because our ideas are colored by this world, our personalities, and by our selfish desires and glamour, and until we let that all go, there can be no clarity. There's no clarity until then. That's what this book is about. That's what DK is saying. From my standpoint today, as I'm reading this. Now we're going to read this 7th way, and then we'll be finished with the glamour on the mental planes. This is great. Through wrong application of ideas, how often does this form of illusion descend upon a disciple? Exclamation point. So much it does. This is in our own experience. This will be in all of our experience. He contacts an idea intuitively and also intelligently. Note the distinction here expressed, and misapplies it. This is perhaps an aspect of the synthetic illusion or the illusion of the whole of the mental plane as modern man contacts it. illusion varies from age to age according to what the hierarchy is attempting to do, or according to the general trends of men's thoughts. The disciple can be therefore swept into a wrong activity and a wrong application of ideas because the general illusion is over dominant in his mind, growing out of the 6 types of illusion of which we've already referred to above. So this is cumulative, compounding, essentially. We're compounding these problems when there is the general illusion is over dominant. So we have to break through this, the prison walls, layer by layer, and expect there to be illusion at each layer and view it as such. I would continue enlarging on the ways whereby illusion traps the unwary disciple, but this will suffice to awaken in you that constructive analysis which leads from knowledge to wisdom. We have noted that the 7 major ways of illusion are as follows. The way of wrong perception, wrong interpretation, wrong appropriation, wrong direction, wrong integration, wrong embodiment, and wrong application. There's lots of ways to just be wrong, period. And they're compound. Essentially compound. That may not be the exact. They're layered over the top of each other. These are the 3rd steps towards expression. The form of the expression is also qualified. Thus, the 7 ways of illusion are produced. And now it's about to come out, right? Like this illusion is about to be played out in the material world, essentially. Right? You got all these crazy ideas, and now you're living in the dream, and now you're experiencing the dream. How about that? I have here outlined for you the causes of the various types of illusion to which the disciple is prone. In its pure form, this illusion has to be met and someday surmounted. It has to be isolated and dispelled by the initiate. It was the final successful effort to do this that led Jesus upon the cross to cry out in the words of apparent distress. You would think that, and I don't think it says it, but Father, why hast thou forsaken me? He then finally dissipated the illusion of the personal objective deity. At that moment, he entered fully into the consciousness that he was himself God, and not else. That the theory of unity outlined by him in the Gospel of St. John, chapter 17, was indeed and in truth a fact in his own consciousness established unalterably. Well, it doesn't say here what was, I don't remember what's said in John chapter 17. I'm not sure. We'd have to look that up. Let's look that up. I'll be right back. All right, so this unity that we're talking about here, that DK is talking about, it appears it's when he says that they may all be one, as you, Father, are in me, and I in you, that they also may be one in us, and that the world may believe that you sent me, and the glory which you gave me, I have given them, and they may be one just as we are one, I and them, you and me, and that they may be made perfect in one, and that the world may know that you've sent me. And it goes on. That the love with which you love me may be in them, and I in them. So there's this unity that's being spoken of, this silence, that is acknowledged as being father, say, in a sense. It was established unalterably in him. Yet, nevertheless, in this infinite and supreme realization, there entered for a moment a sense of loss and negation, forcing from his dying personality that tremendous utterance which has bewildered, and at the same time comforted so many. This signified the surmounting of the final synthetic illusion. When that has been dispelled, illusion, as it can be understood in the human family, disappears. The man stands free. The illusion of the mental plane can no longer deceive him. His mind is a pure instrument for the reflection of light and of truth. The glamours of the astral plane have no further hold over him, and the astral body itself fades out. You'll remember that I hinted to you in a treatise on white magic that the astral body itself was an illusion. It is the definition of the illusory mind upon the mental plane of that which we call the sum total of the desires of the man in incarnation. When illusion and glamour have both been overcome, the astral body fades out in the human consciousness. There is no desire left for the separated self. Kama manas disappears, and man is then regarded as consisting essentially of soul, mind, brain within the body nature. This is a great mystery, and its significance can only be understood when a man has controlled his personality and eliminated all aspects of glamour and illusion. This is accomplished by accomplishing. This mastery is achieved by mastering. This elimination of desire is brought about by conscious eliminating. Get therefore to work, my brothers, and clarification of the problem must inevitably ensue. That which is the opposite pole of illusion is, as you well know, the intuition. The intuition is that recognition of reality which becomes possible as glamour and illusion disappear. An intuitive reaction to truth will take place when, along a particular line of approach to truth, the disciple has succeeded in quieting the thought form-making propensities of the mind so that light can flow directly and without any deviation from the higher spiritual worlds. The intuition can begin to make its presence felt when glamour no longer grips the lower man and a man's low or high desires. Interpreted emotionally or self-centeredly, can no longer come between his brain consciousness and the soul. Fleeting moments of this high freedom come to all true aspirants at times, which keeps us going, right? Certainly, which gives us a push all the time, to keep going during their life struggle. It comes to us during our life struggle. They have then intuitive flash of understanding, the outline of the future and the nature of truth sweeps momentarily through their consciousness, and life is never again exactly the same thing. They have had their guarantee that all struggle is warranted and will evoke its adequate reward. And that is certainly the case, and that's why we keep pushing. As pointed out in the tabulation on page 41, that which dispels illusion and substitutes for it a true spiritual and infallible perception is contemplation. Contemplation necessarily carried on by the soul. Perhaps some grasp of the sequence of development can be arrived at if you realize that the entire meditation process and its three major divisions can be divided as follows. The aspirant on the probationary path is concentration and Maya. The disciple is path of discipleship is meditation and glamour, dispelling glamour, and then the initiate is the path of initiation is regarded as to contemplation and illusion. Now you'd have to see these. They're in a particular order, 1, 2, and 3. And you should refer to the tabulation on page 41 if possible. The above tabulation will suffice to show the connection between the meditation processes outlined and taught in the arcane school, which is the school that Lucis Trust puts on, and the problem which all of you have to face. The technique of the dispelling of illusion as used by the initiate is that of contemplation. But of what use is it for me to discuss this with you if you are not initiate? Would it profit you at all, or would it only satisfy your curiosity if I outlined for you the peculiar processes employed by a soul in contemplation for penetrating and through an act of the trained will and through some first-rate formulas for dispelling it? Not that I can imagine. I shall therefore conclude my remarks on this point concerning illusion from the angle of your evolutionary status. Glamour is your problem, as it is the problem of the world at this time. Some of you whose mental bodies are in process of organizing may suffer somewhat from illusion, but your major problem as a group and as individuals is one of glamour. Your field of living experience is on the higher levels of the astral plane. Your task is to overcome glamour each in your individual lives, and as a group later to approach the arduous task of aiding in the dispelling of world glamour. This you may later be able to do if you submit to training and as individuals understand and master your personal glamours. Just as soon as you have begun to do this, I can begin to use you as a group. But before you can work as a group and before you can assist in the dissipation of the world glamour, you have to understand better and master more definitely the glamours and illusions of your personality. The time has now come for me to help you deal more drastically with this problem of glamour, with the view to your destined group service and not with a view to your personal release. I ask you to set to work, therefore, with fresh courage and determination and with fresh understanding, and to carry on for another year. Will you bend your effort to the task? For task it is. All right, and that, my friends, is that was the discussion of, this was a long one. It's a really long one, I guess, apparently, huh? Glamour on the mental plane, which is an illusion, and how this is affecting us. Every word of it appeared to be, something that we experience in our on the path, in the full light of day, being revealed to us. If you haven't already experienced these things, this is our problem. This is what we need to overcome. It's very simple. DK is laying out the ways to overcome it, and it can be done in our daily life at any given moment. We can be working on these things and identifying their validity and determining the way ahead. So we will get into glamour on the astral plane or illusion on the astral plane tomorrow, it's glamour on the astral plane, which is glamour. Glamour on the mental plane, which is illusion. So we're getting into the second chapter or second portion of this part. All right, have a good day. Lots to think about.